right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Deadman's Tome podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Deadman. This show is completely demonetized on YouTube for being too damn sexy because of this voice. This voice is why it is. I got that email from Susan with Jikiki. I told my wife about it. Oh, she's pissed. She's pissed. So I don't know, Susan. You're going to have to answer to her now. You might want to change that decision. You might want to go reverse that. Anyway, tonight, our guest, Louise Charlotte Harris. How's it going?
Hello, Deadman. Thanks for having me.
It's no problem. It's good to have you. So what do you think about that? What's your opinion?
My opinion on what? Sorry?
Well, being completely demonetized for this channel being too damn sexy. This podcast being too damn sexy.
Do you know what? That's got to be the best reason for being demonetized, though. If you're perfectly honest, to be too damn sexy is always a good thing.
You know, yeah, I have to agree there. It could have been talking about how to, cut up a body and dispose of evidence. It could have been about the search history. It could have been any number of things that this podcast talks about sometimes, like the conspiracies and stuff. But it's the too damn sexy. Anyway,
what can you do?
Right? What can we do? I got an announcement real fast. Look, guys, ladies, I hate begging. I really do. But here it is. Like, if you donate on the show tonight and for the following nights up to the new release, which I'm calling Hollywood Holocaust, which is horror stories, comedic horror stories where celebrities are being targeted by certain monsters or serial killers or whatever. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be great, right? Damascus Mincemeyer. I want more art from this guy, and he's willing to do it, but I have to pay for it. Well, I always pay for the cover, right, out of my pocket. And I'm willing to put more into it. But if you can help me make that possible, we can get some extra artwork in that issue. And I'm talking about extra, maybe not safe for work content in there. Not full-on hustler, not full-on, okay, perverts, okay. But there will be some, cheesecake. There will be some nice stuff in there. Oh, we're talking about celebrities. I could think of a few that we could, Damascus would probably like to illustrate in certain ways. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Maybe Cthulhu does something with Kim Kardashian. I don't know. I would like to envision
love that.
Right?
Yeah.
But we have to make that possible. So if you donate tonight on the show, you can't use super chats because it's completely demonetized. Got to use the streamlabs.com/Mr. Deadman DT. Not only will I take a shot for every time you donate, it'll also help make it possible to, get more artwork for it. Anyway, that's the only announcement I have here. All right, Louise, I'm going to start off with the one question I always do. Who are you and what do you do?
I am Louise Charlotte Harris. I am a lifelong horror fan and avid storyteller. I'm also a former alternative model and two-time runner-up of Alternative Model of the Year. I'm also a short story author. I was one of the 18 contributing authors for the Deviant Nightmares 2012 anthology, and I am currently in the process of completing my first full-length horror novel.
Okay, let's backtrack a little bit real fast. So you were a model or you still are a model?
I used to be a model.
Used to be a model. Okay.
Yes.
How did you get into that?
That was actually as a result of my now current husband, who wanted to boost my ego, basically, and said, you should do this. And so I started doing it in an amateur fashion and got quite a bit of... Not a lot of notoriety, but I certainly got some attention and started entering competitions, including the Alternative Model of the Year, where I was invited back 2 years running to participate in that. So, yeah, that was a thing I did.
That's
also a lot of very questionable things as well. So
Okay. Well, hey, that's not bad since you were invited back again. Wow. I mean, did it help? Did it boost your ego? Did it help you feel better about yourself?
It certainly did, yes. Having come from a previous relationship where I was made to feel like absolutely nothing, it really did a lot for me.
So, I hear this every now and then, maybe something from like the 60s or 70s version of feminism when they say there's power in women embracing their with their feminine qualities or their attractiveness or their image. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely, 100%. I think being a woman is such an amazing thing. It really is, and things like either modeling or even as far as sex work of any description is very emboldening to women. It makes them take control of their assets and what was given to them biologically and be like, here I am, judge me if you will, but this is me. Okay.
Yeah. And hey, I agree with that. I have no problem with that. I mean, how would I disagree with that? All right. I mean, you've seen the stuff I put on the show.
Yes.
Wow. Care to talk about any particular stories about modeling real fast before we go into writing?
One in particular where I was contacted by a gentleman who wished to do some video shoots of me for a fetish website. And I was paid roughly about, how much was it? £50 an hour to go and stand in the snow in a bikini and shiver. And that was it.
Well, for £50 an hour, I would do that.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
That actually paid for my divorce.
That's great. That's great. That's awesome right there. Yeah. Man. Okay. Well, yeah. Sign me up on that one. Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. But you went from modeling to writing? Or were you doing that on the side too?
I was doing that on the side at the same time. In fact, I've been writing since I was about 14 years old. But when I started that, I was primarily writing fan fiction. And, big confession here, I still do. But I've never been far away from writing, really. I've always tried to have it as a big part of my life.
Okay. All right. Now, was there a significant moment in your life that where writing seemed like something you really wanted to do, or did you just sort of like fall into it?
It was a combination of the two, because when I started, it was simply for the love of the Legacy of Kain video games.
Yeah.
That's a throwback to the past, isn't it?
It is. I played the original. Played the original on PC. Good game. And
yeah,
Silicon Knights, man, they made some pretty sweet games. I don't think I've ever played Soul Reaver. That was the sequel, right?
Yes, it was the direct sequel. And as far as I'm concerned, it's still my favorite game ever made. Brilliant voice acting, brilliant characterization, just everything about it was simply amazing. So I loved it. I wanted to create more backstories to these characters that I'd found. And that was when I was about 14 years old. Then when I was about in my early 20s, I want to say about 21, I was on fanfiction.net and I was looking at other people's work. And I came across a story that so infuriated me because it was so badly written and really did not encompass what the characters were about. It was full of Mary Sues all over the place. And it was just like, no, it so infuriated me that I sat down and thought, I'm going to write this.
It was like the new Star Wars. Mary Sue's all over the place.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
But that's what got me into it in a proper way, and I decided, no, I need to set this right.
Hey, that is a good way to motivate anybody, I would imagine. You were upset or bothered by the way they depicted certain characters. Man.
Yes. It annoyed me that I had spent 30 minutes of my life reading it.
Okay. And how old were you then?
I think I was about 22 or 21 or 22 at the time.
22. All right. Okay. Now, you shared with me a short story in a collection. The short story, I believe, was called Confession, right?
Confessions, yes.
Confessions. That is a brutal story, and I definitely enjoyed it. I enjoyed the details of the characters, the way you described them.
Oh, thank you, Deadman.
The brutality of it. In fact, the way you described it, it sounded like something from like a Clive Barker novel, like a Hellraiser's thing.
Ooh, thank you.
Was that what you were going for?
Definitely. I really enjoyed the visceral aspects of Clive Barker's work and his character depictions. It makes me very envious to read, some of the characters that Clive Barker has come up with. So I always strive to do what he does.
Now, there's two things that really stand out in that book, or in that story for me. Definitely the brutality and this underlying theme of sin and punishment, which we'll talk about both those things here. How do you feel about brutality and gore and horror?
I don't like it for the sake of it being there. So long as it's intrinsic to the story, have at you. I absolutely love it. If it's done well, there is absolutely nothing wrong with body horror and gore. I adore it.
Yeah, there's a time and place, right? I mean, you could think of like certain movies, for example, like torture porn, stuff like Saw, where it's like, okay, well, I mean, how much do you need? How much is important? I mean, is it crucial for horror?
It's not necessarily crucial because you do have some very, very good ghost stories. Like, for example, The Woman in Black. Very, very good, atmospheric, creepy ghost story that really unsettles the soul. And yet not a glimpse of blood in the whole thing.
Right. You even have old school examples of even like horror back in the 50s, where it was like black and white, and they didn't really use blood. It was more just atmosphere.
Yes.
And atmosphere plays a huge part of it too. If you're just putting buckets of gore there, then okay, well then you just have that's not really disturbing or disgusting. It depends on how you do it.
No, exactly. I cannot remember for the life of me who said this, but someone once said, a little bit of blood is worrying and concerning. Buckets of blood is comedic.
Right?
So to try and keep within, to try and find the middle ground between the two is, I imagine, quite a challenge.
It's like, like I'm thinking Evil Dead now. Evil Dead has a lot of blood. And when you see that much blood, as much as I like Evil Dead, it's kind of comedic when you see that much blood. And I think in Evil Dead it's meant to be, especially in the second one, especially in Ash versus the Evil Dead, that series.
Yes.
It's meant to be comedic, over the top. No, there's a scene where Ash literally has his head up a carcass's ass. And there's shit everywhere.
Oh my god, I remember that. Yeah.
So, I mean, you see it spraying everywhere just for the fun of it. It's not really there for the horror, but it's there for effect.
Yes.
Now,
which can, it can work, if that's what you're going for, but it doesn't always have the payoff that one would hope for.
Right. Unless you know what you're doing, right? I mean, Sam Raimi, I'm willing to bet he knew exactly. Yeah, we're going for over the top. We're going campy on this sort of thing. We're gonna have fun. Now, there's more than just gore, though. There's very detailed depiction of brutal torture, or the way people look, like gruesome disfigurements, gruesome injuries, or eyes being sewn. The last podcast we talked about a movie, Event Horizon, which has a lot of brutal images, scenes towards the end of it, where Sam Raimi's character is all like torn up and stuff.
Yes.
Eyelids. Well, eyes gone, then eyes come back. I don't know, it's all confusing. That movie's kind of confusing, in my opinion. But so, how do you feel about that?
I mean, personally, I love Event Horizon. I think it's one of the greatest horror movies that's ever been made, and I think it's such a shame that so much of it was cut from the actual theatrical release, and so much of it has, even though they've recovered some of it, a lot of it has still been destroyed, and we will never see the full production of what that film was supposed to be. Help me,
because I rewatched it the other night, and I was like, I remember really enjoying this movie. I enjoy the scenes. There are things I really like about it, and there's parts I'm just like, wait, this part seems rushed. This part seems like they just went from point A to point B, and there's like, okay, we gotta get this thing moving along. Like, stuff either was rushed or stuff was cut.
Yeah, I think it suffered a lot from the cutting room floor, because they obviously, with a lot of films, they show it to a test audience, and if you show it to a bunch of people that are into chick flicks, they're going to immediately start vomiting in the cinema, aren't they?
Well, people vomiting to a horror, that's great. That used to be welcomed. I remember, I can't think of the director. It's a classic. I'm trying to remember his name, but his reaction to moviegoers like puking and I think it was the Exorcist acting in a certain way like that. It was like, good, then I did well.
Yes. William Castle, director of the original House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts. Mm-hmm. He was another one who used to enjoy having the theatrics of having like an ambulance waiting outside the cinema. Like, this film is so scary that we need, paramedics on site. There are some people that relish in it and, won't take no for an answer. But then there are others that I suppose have conflicts with the studio they're working with and have to abide by their rules at the end of the day.
Yeah, and those guys, they want to sell as many tickets as possible, which is why they usually try to bring a hard R down to a PG-13 as much as they can. I don't know about you, Louise, but whenever I hear when I see a PG-13 horror movie, I'm like, great. How scary is this really going to be?
Yeah.
Come on now.
I think the my limit is a 15 certificate, because then I can be pretty much guaranteed that, okay, so we're probably not going to have any gore in this. However, we may have some very good atmosphere, so I'm prepared to give it a shot.
That's right. You're in the UK. They do stuff different over there, huh?
Yes. I forget that you have a different certification.
Yeah, it goes from R to PG-13. That's it. Right.
Okay.
And so there's not really much. You don't, and they all try to water it down to PG-13. They try to put kid gloves on the horror movies.
Yes.
And then there's gore and detailed depictions in novels as well. And sometimes it's sometimes it's great. Like, I read this book recently, while young, a Magpie Coffin. Lots of blood everywhere, but it's a splatter western. That's its thing. Now, have you had experience? Could you think of any stories or novels where it was too much gore, or it was a problem?
I'm trying to think now, because any movie that I've noticed has had, as you put it, too much gore, has been equally rather campy as well in its delivery. So it's not really been that off-putting to me that's been happening. Like, I think one of the campiest and bloodiest movies I've ever seen is a movie called Cradle of Fear, which is a British movie. It actually stars Cradle of Filth singer Danny Filth.
Of course.
Yes. And, it's just so over the top gore and blood, and it's an anthology movie, so it switches between lots of characters and all these horrible, horrible things happen to them. Like one guy is an amputee and he decides, well, he wants his leg back, so he chops off a guy's leg and has it stitched onto himself. It's absolutely horrific. Yeah. Just takes it to a doctor and he's like, yeah, put this on for me, and he does it. But at the same time, it's done in such a camp way, in the way that all good British camp horror movies are, that you can forgive it. And I even find that so with even American movies that have done exactly the same thing, as you were saying, like The Evil Dead. Don't have a problem with that at all. So long as within the first 15 minutes of a movie, I think I've got the idea of where this is going to go. So I'm not really put off at all by gratuitous amounts of blood. There's only two things I cannot stand, and that is fingernails being torn out and anything to do with feet. Like the hobbling scene in Misery, cannot watch it for the life of me. Cannot watch that.
Yeah. The BBC Netflix Dracula, that's a mouthful. I like gore. I could handle that. But the scene where they was taking off the fingernails, that was like, oh. Yeah.
That's too much. Yeah.
Fingernails or eyes. To books, there was a book I read called Sick House. I'm trying to recall the author's name. Sick House. But the gore, the brutal aspect doesn't seem all that much, but it's like little things like using scissors to cut your eyelids and going into it's stuff like that really sticks out. Jeff Strand is the guy. And I was like, oh man, it affected me. I wasn't like, I'm gonna stop reading it, but I was like wow, like something small like that, like a cut to the eyelid, that's gonna bother me. All right.
Yeah, it makes your toes curl, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Now, before I move on to the sin and horror, or sin and punishment and horror, there's another thing I noticed that we didn't bring up, is that a part of the deviant art scene. I did not know until talking to you and reading your story that there was a writing, I guess, community within the deviant art scene. I guess, is that right?
Yes, there are huge writing communities on DeviantArt, several groups that are dedicated to various genres of fiction, whether it be horror or romance. Anything goes on DeviantArt, and there's generally a community that will follow what you're interested in.
That's pretty cool. Now, you provided some artwork that will display throughout the rest of the show here. If you're listening to this on the podcast feed, I'll credit the artwork. Maybe you can find it that way. But it's not going to really be that much of a distraction. Don't worry. But anyway, so let's talk about the theme of like sin and punishment in horror novels and horror movies, because that's an underlying theme in your short story Confessions that was very apparent, right? That was like the overall thing.
Yes.
I mean, if you took that out, the story would crumble. It's part of it.
It is very much the backbone of the story, yes.
Now, that is something that we could see in a lot of different stories, novels, and movies. And how do you feel about that?
I feel like, because the idea of sinfulness is almost as old as time immemorial. You can go back, thousands of years, BC, and you would still find this element of, if you've been a good person, this will happen to you when you die. If you've been a bad person, this will happen to you when you die. Even as far back as the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Babylonians, this idea that your heart would be weighed when you died. and that would determine what happened to you in the afterlife. It has always been an intrinsic part of humanity, is this idea of, if you have done bad things in your life, this will come back to you in one way or another.
Right. That's a theme that's, man, it dates back. It's because whether you are religious or not, it's something that's ingrained in our society, and what it influences our art. This idea of sin, and that you have to atone for it.
It really does, because, as you say, even people who aren't necessarily religious will still be inherently aware of things like what the Ten Commandments are, or generally what would be considered a shameful or a sinful act. It has been embedded into us as children, almost. No, don't say that, don't do that. And the thing is that regardless of how clean-cut anyone appears on the surface, everyone has secrets, everyone has done something that they're ashamed of.
That's true. We have. And it is something that even atheists and agnostics, they they are aware of the commandments, that they are aware of certain things. Even if they don't recognize that as a sin, they at least recognize that it's something that you shouldn't do because it harms other people. They might look at it at another way. But
yes,
there's still that punishment aspect. And there's something about, I don't know what it is, about horror, where it seems the idea of sin being punished is so, woven into everything. Like, you have even campy horror movies, let's say like Friday the 13th, where it's like, oh, that's a simple campy movie, but it's like sex equals death. You fuck, you die. Abstinence is the way to survive.
Yes, you must be free of drugs and alcohol, just as they explained in the breaking of the fourth wall in Scream. Yeah.
Yes. Hell, Jesus could have been using that machete. In Michael, no, that's Halloween. But yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yes, and even if you put it in terms of the Saw movies as well.
Oh, good example.
Jigsaw is punishing the guilty.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking these people that actually deserve these punishment. Well, how he sees it, they deserve these punishments.
Right, and he puts it out there. He's not afraid about it. He's telling them exactly what it is. What does he call it? Like a pound of flesh? Like you have to atone by giving your your
pound of flesh. Yes.
Pound of flesh. Okay, that sounds much better. Man. And even in horror novels too, it's there. It's I think. I wonder if it's because, in horror, it's and a very important aspect of horror is that the genre makes you face your fears, right? Any sort of safety net that you have is gone. You're going to face your fears, which is going to be probably the sins you have done, the things that you've done wrong. You're going to put on trial for.
Yes.
Oh man.
And essentially you have you have particular stories and mythologies as well, and it has been brought into movies. I actually watched one the other night and I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. But essentially you have things like there are demons in mythology who their sole purpose is to seek out the unbelievers. So people who don't even believe that there is a God or a judgment, these are the ones that will come after you, and they know what you have done.
Right. So whether you believe or not, they're coming. And
yes,
that stuff is in mythology, Oh man, it's woven. I don't think you could separate it.
No, not at all.
Man. And in movies, of course, you have also in books too. You have examples of like literally the devil playing a part, like in your short story. The devil of some form playing a part of, administering the punishment or what have you.
In my story, I was asked for the submission of my entry to Deviant Nightmares, what was your influence for this particular piece that you've written? And my answer was always, one of my favorite quotes ever is the one that says, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world that he doesn't exist." And that played such a significant part in the telling of my story.
Oh, wow. I could see that, looking back at that. And I would ask you to talk about your story, kind of explain to the audience. I don't want you to give it away. So I'll let you ride that line of what you want to say about it without giving it away. Giving away too much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Well, it focuses on a young girl who is named Claire, and she wakes up in a place that she does not recognize and probably should never be able to recognize. She is bound to the wall in a room of red viscous that is constantly moving. She is held by her arms and her chest. It smells putrid in this place. Heavy moisture upon the air. The whole place appears to be breathing and breathing around her. And she cannot escape. And in the distance, she sees another person equally restrained in this place with her. And he tells her to be quiet, or he will come. And during this sequence of events with this backing and forth thing of Claire asking, what's going on, where am I, etc., all of these hideous things start to appear before Claire's eyes, all of these things that cause her to experience a stress and a terror reaction to what's going on, this sense of hopelessness that eventually overcomes her. And essentially, the guy on the opposite wall to her starts to ask her, what is your greatest sin? Why are you here? If you answer that question, then you will be released from here. And that's essentially what it is, but I shall leave the ending.
Yeah, definitely leave it.
Yes.
Definitely let it stay there. But yeah, the living, breathing walls, that stuff. And that's another thing that's shared, like the vision of hell and horror from, so I played a lot of video games, from Doom to, what was that? Elder Scrolls 1, Oblivion, where it's like,
oh yes,
the walls of the hell dimension are living, breathing tissue, organic. Oh man. What is up with that? Is that an accident, or are people just copying the other? Like the developers of Oblivion, were they just like, oh, Doom had living tissue on the ground in hell, let's just copy that? Or was it like a shared consensus, like, okay, this is what hell would probably look like?
I'm not entirely sure, because obviously when you get your first depictions of hell, they're usually very biblical and this whole fire and brimstone element. However, then you have things like Dante entering the scene, and you have the 7 layers of hell and what's going on within them. And I wonder if part of that has really moved the mythology of hell onwards from the fire and brimstone element and taken it into another direction. But equally, so there is the fact that people who enjoy horror and creating horror are aware that gore unsettles people and makes them uncomfortable. So what would be the worst thing the average person could encounter in hell? And it's probably a writhing set of bodies.
Yeah, I think so. Now, you have another a book that you're working on, or you have a book that you're working on, right?
Yes. I'm currently in the phase of second draft at the moment, and then it shall go to beta readers, and then potentially either, hopefully this year, but if COVID doesn't sort itself out in the imminent future, then it will be next year that hopefully I'll be published.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about this book. What's going on with it?
This is going to be it's a supernatural entry into what I do.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated with the idea of mental health. I used to actually work in psychiatry, just in a administration capacity. But I was confronted with a lot of people who were in various stages of, mental illness and psychosis and all manner of highly unpleasant things. And it just got me thinking about, the people who, the people who were suffering with schizoaffective disorder, who were saying about hearing voices in their heads and seeing things. And it got me thinking, what if that was actually a real voice that was talking to you and it wasn't just a voice in your head? So I've brought in the element of a character who has heard a voice in her head throughout her life, a voice that has equally been adoring and berating of her throughout her life. This voice in her head is not her imagination. It is, in fact, a spirit that has haunted her throughout her life.
Oh, wow. You know what? Touching on that, I mean, a lot of these guys, and this from my experience too. Look at this. I used to work at a psych facility for a number of years, and as a mental health tech, had hands-on experience. Quite literally, had to restrain people as well. So the guys and ladies that are that deal with that suffer from schizophrenia, where they appear to be hearing voices in their head, hearing voices. To them, it's real. It is real.
Yes.
And I could see how the idea would be like, oh, what if it's like a demonic possession is taking a hold of them, and they maybe that's what triggered it. And I mean, based on my experience, like I said, some of these guys and ladies, when you talk to them, they'll tell you, like one guy was like, I was normal, I was fine until I smoked some fry. Or was it fry or was it wet? I forgot what he called it. It was marijuana laced in formaldehyde. So I was like, why would you smoke that? That's embalming fluid? Why would you do that? He was like, he was a teenager. I was like, well,
oh wow.
But he would have these episodes where he would be talking and yelling at things that weren't there. He's fine and harmless. He's just in his room just pacing. Routine, but his was triggered by, I mean, he got that, I guess, onset or whatever by drugs, or at least smoking that. But I could see the idea of demonic possession, or maybe a demonic influence or something. So what does it do? What does this thing do? Because you said it praises, it gives her. It gives her some praise, and also it scolds her.
Yes, and that is because this particular character actually possesses a power that is so strong that she has the potential to destroy the world at will if she gets angry enough or irate enough.
So she's
and the thing is,
she's a mutant? She's like an X-Men?
Yeah. That is explained in the story as to how this whole turn of events actually transpired to what it is. So I shan't be giving that away at this moment in time. But essentially what the voice in her head is trying to do is... the voice in her head wants her to destroy the world. Mm-hmm. So he gets annoyed with her. He gets annoyed with her when she manages to calm herself down and not take out her frustrations
Okay.
on the people that are surrounding her. He wants her to take control of this thing inside her and just to completely annihilate everyone. And there is one other character in the story, one major character, and he is the only one who could potentially stop her from doing this. And the unfortunate thing is that he is equally a spirit who haunts her, but she does not hear him.
Does she feel him?
No.
So she has to learn to hear him in order for him to actually have any real effect?
Essentially, yes. I mean, she saw this. She saw the better of the two spirits when she was a very young child.
Okay.
And he was constantly with her, like from the moment she was born up until the age of 3, where something happens and he disappears from her sight. And the only thing that will draw him back into her sight is this release of this power that she has. But every time the power is released, she's generally always looking the other way to where this spirit is. So she goes through her whole life thinking that this good spirit that she knew as a child was just an imaginary friend and something she made up.
Wow. So, has anyone else read this so far? I mean, you said it's not in beta reading stage right now, right?
No, it's not quite there yet. After the second draft is done, then I'll start distributing it to a few readers. But other than a few minor extracts here and there, no one has read this yet.
Okay. Well, it sounds very promising. And,
thank you.
And who's helping you edit lately? Do you edit yourself? Do you have someone you trust?
At the moment, I'm editing myself, but I do have some very good friends, some very well-read friends who have offered to do it for me once I'm past the second draft.
Okay. Now, do you have any other short stories or books out there?
I don't have any other published work. However, I do have plenty of things on my DeviantArt page.
Okay.
This ranges from original short stories, including Confessions from the Deviant Nightmares 2012 anthology. It also has my large variety of fan fiction material from Legacy of Kain to 13 Ghosts. Primarily my work focuses on the Jackal from that movie, so take that as you want. And there's some original stuff in there as well, and in there is also my my old artwork as well, which I don't generally do now because I'm not very good at it. I'm better at the written word than I am with the traditional drawing.
I'm horrible at drawing. I couldn't. Oh, man. So, why horror? What's the fascination with horror? Like, what fascinates you with it?
That's going way back into my childhood, really.
All right. Well, I have a couch here ready for you. That's what I do on the show. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, I remember being very young and watching things even as generic as Disney movies and thinking to myself, I relate more to the villains of these pieces rather than the good guys of the story. You know, I used to cry at the end of Sleeping Beauty because Maleficent in her dragon form was killed.
Right? I mean, she's badass in that dragon form.
Exactly, and I don't know why they didn't utilize it more in the Angelina Jolie version of it.
Man, they should have.
Yes, definitely. But I was always drawn to, the darker aspects of characters and why they were like that. I think my mother cottoned onto this very quickly for me, that, I liked these sorts of characters and these elements to stories. So my mother would let me watch some very dubious movies for my age. Certain ones she was like, no, we're not watching that. We're definitely not watching that. My mother was not a fan of slasher movies. In fact, I don't think I did not see Halloween or Friday the 13th, any of those, until I was about 18 years old. But my mother would let me watch things like The Crow, Alien, Predator, those sorts of things.
Wait, she would let you watch The Predator?
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, The Predator is pretty badass. That is a good... God, what am I kidding? That's a great action flick. And I don't know how you feel about it, but a lot of guests on the show, myself included, the host, kind of see it as a horror as well. It could be both.
It's definitely a horror. It's a sci-fi, it's an action, and it's a horror. It utilizes all three to perfect equality. Mm-hmm. It's a very stunning movie, and the creature design. I have a big thing aside from supernatural movies. I also love a good creature feature as well, and Predator just nails it. It is a perfect design in the same way that the Xenomorph is a very perfect design for an alien creature.
It is a great design, and the whole Alien. That's an awesome movie. Very smart how they did it,
Yes.
Very attentive to the atmosphere, to the scene, and to the creature effects. And since it was practical, you could see the sweat, you could see the wetness.
Oh yes. I mean, the same can be said for The Thing as well. Like all the practical effects of that, that is a masterpiece. And should be taught in media schools as to what can be done with practical effects and why they are superior.
Because imagine if they use, especially imagine if they use like the 80s CGI in Alien. It would be horrible. Horrible movie. 80s CGI was crap.
Yeah. I will probably get berated for this comment, but this is a strongly held opinion of mine that I will defend Alien 3 until my dying breath. I think the only thing that lets Alien 3 down is the bad CGI of the alien running on the ceiling.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a while since I've seen Alien 3. But yeah. Okay. So, about your childhood. Not gonna let you off the hook there. Now, did you have like an Addams Family sort of life?
In a way, yes. My mother was a very alternative person. She was all, black leather and
really?
weird oddities around the house and things like that. My mother used to have shelves with reams of books, and upon every single one of them you would have books on medieval torture, current world torture. We would go and visit the London dungeons once a year. Every year she'd have books on serial killers. If my mother was still alive today, then I'm sure that CBS Reality would be her favorite TV show because of all of the murder documentaries.
I have a Ouija board over there. We could probably try to bring her back and so she can talk. I don't know. The board's defective. It doesn't work. I tried many, many times.
Oh, I'm sure you have. Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. And that stuff just sounds like sounds like bedtime reading right there.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, to this day, because I'm a chronic insomniac, the only way that I can actually fall asleep if I'm really struggling to fall asleep is to play creepypastas being read by someone on YouTube.
Oh, that stuff is pretty cool.
Yes.
My only complaint about that stuff is I hope they have an agreement with the author who wrote that story.
Yes, definitely.
I saw something, I think a month ago, and I did a little podcast on it, talking about apparently some YouTubers that do creepypasta and horror stuff aren't even talking with the writer of the story and then just reading it as if they just think, hey, it's on the internet, fair use. That's not how that works, man.
No, it's really not. No.
But they just think of it that way. So, okay. How do you find the time to write?
Oh, I struggle with the time to write now. I think back to when I started writing, properly when I was in my early 20s, and I was just constantly writing. Even though I had a full-time job, I'd be sitting there with my notebook and just taking little notes, going on walks during my lunch break, and again taking notes as soon as I'd get home, much to my ex-husband's annoyance. I would be immediately on the laptop and writing up all the notes I'd done and everything else. Now, for some reason, I just having had the break from writing fiction and the longevity of that break as well, it's been very hard getting back into that mindset. So now I'm having to be quite disciplined with myself and really making myself sit down and go, right, this is what we're doing today. This is how long we're going to be spending on it, which isn't as much fun as it used to be, but I'm finding myself being very productive with it. One of the things I have found to be incredibly useful, and I don't know if other authors will benefit from this or if they know this technique and are using it already, but voice recorders on your phone are a godsend, especially if you are doing dialogue. I will sit in my car on a lunch break and I will do multiple voices for a conversation between two characters to make sure it sounds legit before I write it down.
That's not a bad idea. That is and you're utilizing a tool right there that just about everybody could use. Unless you still have a flip phone, but still.
Yes.
All right. That's cool. That's cool. See, I didn't think about that. So you could just have it voice record and just pretty much talk to yourself. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's kind of what I do anyway. I mean, do you do that when, like, in time when maybe you're driving or alone time?
Oh, God,
I'm talking to yourself like a crazy person.
I have performed inner monologues with myself for as long as I can possibly remember. I'm an only child. I've spent my life talking to myself because there was no one else to talk to.
Hey. I remember hearing someone like, those that talk to themselves are crazy, and I'm like, well, I must be insane.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you were to hear if you put a mic in my car when I'm driving, when I'm not blasting music, it's like I'm talking to myself about this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
going over thoughts.
For me, it's almost a meditative thing as well to do the whole inner monologue. It settles me, it calms me. Like if I'm really worried or anxious, if I start talking to myself and assessing the situation with myself as if someone else is there in the room, that absolutely gets me 100%, then suddenly things are clearer. I can really focus on something after having a conversation with myself, which sounds absolutely insane, but that's how my mind works.
And does it help you? Does having that conversation with yourself out loud help you realize like certain plot holes or certain goofs, like in your that you wouldn't notice otherwise?
Oh God, yes, and especially I find like just typing dialogue, you tend not to get a sense of who the characters are if you're just typing. Now, if you can act that out, even with just your voice alone, you can remember who this person is by the way they talk, and you can sit there and go, no, this person wouldn't use that word.
That's important. That is important.
Yeah.
Because one of the mistakes of dialogue is that we write what we think they're going to say, maybe in the way we would say it, but not in the way that the character, given the character's background, maybe the character's age. Like if you're, for example, if you're writing, with like a middle school, a middle school kid. They're not gonna sound like you, right?
No.
How would you write someone like that?
I mean, that's it's interesting because I've kind of had to use in my novel different aspects of, this character, my main protagonist in my story, is probably the closest thing. This will probably be the closest thing to an autobiography I have ever written and ever will. So I've used a lot of my own experiences and a lot of the ways that I spoke at the time in depicting that. And fair enough, you have these scenes where my character was supposedly born in like 1980 something, which was roughly the time that I was born as well. So I kind of have a timeline of what people were saying at the time. If you ask me today what middle schoolers were saying, I wouldn't have the foggiest.
No, not really, right? I mean, you'd have to pay attention. I guess you'd have to put yourself in a place somehow, hear how they talk. If you're a gamer, if you play a lot of games, you could just fire up, I don't know, Halo or Modern Warfare or something and listen to the 13-year-old who's going to call you the F-bomb, the N-bomb.
Yes.
Things you can't even say anymore. Things, you're going to hear how they talk. Usually, in my experience, 13-year-old, especially 13-year-old boys who are like, they're fucking mean. 13-year-old girls are mean too. They're fucking vicious. They're vicious.
Teenage girls are the worst. From someone who went to an all-girls school, I can assure you that middle schoolers are the worst when they're female.
Right. So if you're writing a 13-year-old and they're not really offensive, they're not really mean, you're doing it wrong.
Yes. Yes, definitely. But it's little aspects like in my novel, there is a long part of it where you see my character as a 3-year-old, and it's little things like the fact that she's trying to pronounce the good ghost's name. His name is Jonathan, but she can't pronounce a TH sound, so she just says Jonathan.
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes when I read that, I'm like, oh, that's right. It's a kid talking. Yeah, that's kind of how kids talk.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't pronounce it, the right way, all the way. Now, how do you deal with distractions?
Oh my God. I tell you, Deadman, I used to be able to write no matter the circumstances. I used to have heavy metal music playing or, dark electro going on because I was getting a lot of inspiration from the music and from the lyrics. They were really speaking to me in terms of character development and things like that. Now I've gone back to writing and I need to have absolutely perfect writing environment. Like I have to send my husband upstairs to his computer to play online games while I sit downstairs and put YouTube on and listen to sad cello music.
Sad cello music? Or
yes.
Okay. Wait. Oh, you mean cello? Like the instrument. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dark cellos, sad cellos. Yeah, that's how I write now because I find the lyrics too distracting. But
I thought you meant cholo, like
no, that's just my accent. Sorry.
Like, all right, okay, like an LA Hispanic cholo guy or something. Okay. I mean, if that would be more like rap, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's your thing.
But that's how I deal with it now. Much to my annoyance that I can't be in the zone that I was back when I first started doing this. But luckily my husband is very understanding and will happily go upstairs and do what he has to do.
Your husband sounds great. He sounds very understanding. He's the one who pushed you for your modeling career, right? Or modeling.
He is, yes.
Okay. I would imagine. I don't know if most boyfriends would do something like that. I think they'd be like, oh no, if she goes out there, then someone's going to take her away from me, or oh no, you know?
Yeah. And we actually know plenty of people who are that way inclined and, you know, tell their girlfriends and their wives to cover up. And, you know, whereas, you know, my husband is very much, no, show it off, you know, you look nice.
You know, how do you feel? I kind of talked about this in the beginning of the episode here, but how do you feel about, like, when other women tell women to cover up?
I think that's like that's a personal preference, and again, I wouldn't want a man to tell me to cover up. I would not want a woman to do it either. That's what you want to do. That's not what I want to do. Again, it's an intrusion of self to tell someone that what they're doing is incorrect.
Right. I agree. It's that's something that's what's on my mind. It comes up quite a bit. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. You go on social media, and there's always someone. I mean, they claim to be a feminist, but they're like, women should be covered up, or women this cleavage is going to be subject to the male gaze, and to be like they're being objectified, all this stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, don't you check out guys too? I mean, what's you know that's my reaction when I read something like that. I'm like, but do you check out guys? You know?
Well, yeah, I'm one of these people that, you know, if I, you know, this is gonna just sound so dodgy.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah. When it comes to, you know, real life guys, like, you know, bar my husband, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. However, you know, twisted fictional guys with dark pasts, I'm all about that.
I was referring to the certain, I guess, you've probably seen them, certain women who claim that they're feminists, but they're like, women should cover up, or when women look like, especially they look like comic book characters or video game characters, be like, you know, they're being subjected or they're objectified or whatever because too much cleavage, or they'll look at a model and be like, they're I don't know. I can't even really regurgitate what they say, because to me it sounds like, but I'm sure I know they check out people too. So
they do, yes, and there's no, you know, two ways about it. You know, we're all looking at each other, you know, whether we want to admit it or not. Everyone's looking at someone else, regardless. And the thing is that it all comes down to comfort at the end of the day. If you feel, you know, more comfortable, you know, to be covered up, then of course do it. If that's what makes you feel attractive and beautiful to be covered up, then do it. But do not, you know, have a go at someone because they feel better about themselves when they are showing more, because you're not them.
Right. I agree. Let's see. Now, I do need to do this caption contest. Let me find this image here. Okay. We've made it this far on the show. On the Deadman's Tome fan club page, or fan club group on Facebook, every week I try to do a caption contest to give out a prize. Sometimes it's a bogus prize. Sometimes it's a real prize. So this time it's a real prize. A t-shirt. Deadman's Tome t-shirt. Nice. So the image is on the screen now. If you're listening to the podcast feed, I'll include this image on deadmanstome.net or on the Deadman's Tome fan club so that you can see it. Anyway, so the image is, I'll try to describe it the best I can. It is well, it's a short black dude. It's a really short black dude. You might classify him as a midget or a little person. I'm not sure what the correct lingo is, but there is he has a chain, a leash, a dog leash on a woman who I'm not really convinced. Is she a woman? You think she's a woman? I think she's a woman.
I think she's a woman. Yes.
Those breasts do actually look kind of real. Are they real?
Yeah.
They look real.
I think the bone structure in the face suggests as well.
Yeah, that those hips right there. That's okay. She's rocking a mohawk. Hey, more power to her.
Mm-hmm.
That cross on her chest.
Yeah, that's a subdermal implant, isn't it?
It is. Wow. She must really like Jesus.
I'm trying to figure out what those two things are in her forehead.
Those are like antennas, I think. Antennas.
That's mad. I mean, good on her, but
So I'm gonna read.
I love it, but it's not me.
I'll read these comments here, and we'll gauge on how Louise Charlotte Harris laughs, whether they're funny. Okay.
I'm a giggly bitch.
I'm not gonna say the name. Here we go. First one. 2020 in human form. Its final form. Okay, that was kind of a little laugh. Damn, that coronavirus took a toll on Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson.
Oh my god.
That was a better laugh. Better chuckle. We reach beyond Thunderdome. Master Blaster runs Bartertown.
Do you know, as soon as I saw this image, that was what my immediate thought was Mad Max 3 Thunderdome.
Ooh, that might be a winner. I don't know. Revealed. First pictures leaked of R2-D2 and Darth Maul out of costume going for a walk together. That is pretty good. Okay. Oprah Winfrey and Lori Petty seen roaming the streets after lockdown was lifted in Hollywood.
Oh my god, that's cruel.
On this one. Bitch, hurry up. I gotta get your shit off my face. Don't make me slap your ass with this whip again.
What? Personally, I think my vote goes to Thunderdome.
Thunderdome. So you vote Thunderdome, but I think you had a better laugh for Jimmy Pudge. That was Jimmy Pudge.
I did, yeah.
He does like offensive stuff. Well, it doesn't offend me, but he does like vulgar words like bitch. Oh my god! But it's funny. It was funny, but you did like the Mad Max reference.
I did, yes.
Well, I'll leave it up to you. So Mad Max reference are the I got to get your shit off my face.
I think it has to be Mad Max only
Mad Max.
Because that's a proper mind sync with me.
Okay, all right. So Scott Fontenot, I don't know how to say that right. I'll get you a shirt. Hopefully you live in the U.S. If not, then that's going to be really expensive. Anyway.
Yes.
I'll take care of that. Oh, man. One question I always ask all my guests, what is your favorite horror movie and why?
Oh. You know what? I could go into, things, stuff that has meant so much to me for so long. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to two that I can never quite choose between. The first has to be Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the second is the remake of 13 Ghosts.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't remember seeing. I've not seen the original. I've not seen the original. But 13 Ghosts, that was pretty good.
It was, and as much as Hellraiser has had such an impact on my life and carried me through creatively, I found 13 Ghosts to have this beautiful mix of horror and comedy that just aligned itself so beautifully. Like the comedy did not eclipse the horror too much, but it was there just to take the edge off, to not make it it could have been a lot more scary if it wanted to be, but clearly it didn't want to be. It wanted to have this little bit of comic relief, and it just does it so well.
Mm-hmm. And Hellraiser, I mean, that was a good pick as well.
Definitely.
Good.
And Doug Bradley is the man, as far as I'm concerned.
And that he is. All right. Well, Louise Charlotte Harris, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us, or talking to me.
Thank you for inviting me, Deadman.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far, press the like button, share, subscribe. If you listen to this on the podcast feed, leave a comment wherever it is, if it's CastBox or iTunes, whatever. I do read those. So anyway, y'all take it easy.